Marketer of the Day, episode 534. Discover your superpower, use madness to your advantage, and fail frequently with direct response copywriter Doberman Dan.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Marketer of the Day podcast. We're talking right now with Doberman Dan, and Doberman Dan is a 33-year serial entrepreneur. He's an A-list copywriter, and he's a 3-time international best-selling author, a professional musician, and a composer. And he's going to talk to us about what the most successful online marketers do and how things are changing and what we need to know and do in our business. So Dan, glad to be talking to you.
Same here, Robert. Been looking forward to it. Thanks for the invite.
Awesome. Anytime. So, first of all, I got to ask, what is with the Doberman Dan nickname? Are you going to bite my hand or something?
So I had a business, my first successful business after 9 years of serial business failure, was in the bodybuilding niche. And so I was writing a bunch of bodybuilding articles, and I wrote one about my Doberman puppy at the time, who only weighed 70 pounds and got into a fight with a 130-pound Rottweiler and won the fight because he was so lean and muscular and fast. So I wrote an article about, hey, I've allowed myself to turn into a Rottweiler. I'm big and bulky and got this big gut. And so now I'm on my Doberman plan to get back to looking like my Doberman. Then signed it as a joke, Doberman Dan, and it stuck from that day on. So I've been using it ever since. Nobody can remember or spell or pronounce my last name, so this one's way more memorable.
Just goes to show you made it work, and also by accident, just from trying different things out and seeing what people reacted to. And so you're saying that you have been in the bodybuilding niche, and I see in your bio that you created a bunch of different nutritional supplement businesses. So can you kind of tell us about what sorts of things you've been setting up online that have been successful?
So my first successful online business was that bodybuilding business. So that started out as a mail order business back, but really, this is pre-internet days, before the internet was really a viable media for marketers. But I think it was late 96, early 97, a friend of mine helped me get a website up online. And so I was selling information products in that market and supplements. So I got my information products and my nutritional supplements up online back then. And things are a lot different now. It was so bare bones back then. Nobody even knew what to do, including myself. And the only thing I knew what to do is I thought, I guess I'll just learn. I'll take what I learned in direct mail and apply it to email. And, send my emails as if they were direct mail. And that seemed to work well. So that was the first business that I took online. It was just an extension of my mail order business. I was advertising in direct mail and in magazine ads. So this just kind of gave me the online media aspect of it. And then, I've started a bunch of others. Businesses in the martial arts space, in selling to people who own gyms to help them. I sold a package to help them with their marketing. I've had, so 1, 2, 3, 4. I've had 4 nutritional supplement businesses online. The most recent was strictly offline based. I got that going, and as soon as I got proof of concept, I sold the business. Let's see, what else have I had? I have info product businesses in business to business, in health, and my current business, which is for marketers and copywriters. So I've had a lot of online businesses. It's what I do to support my 2 bad habits of sleeping indoors and eating regularly.
Right. Well, it sounds like, having listed all, it sounds like you've set up a ton of stuff all over the map. So, I mean, you've launched into all these different businesses, and also, as you said, the past 20 years, so much has changed in the internet. Like, it seems like the whole entire internet has been recreated since then. So, I mean, would you say that, are there a couple of things that set you apart, or that maybe you think that you've done right that others haven't?
That changes all the time. I was even thinking today, trying to think, like, what is my true superpower here? And there are times I pat myself on the back, and I've been writing direct response sales copy now for almost 25 years. And I've gotten to points in my life where where I think I've gotten really good at that and think that's my superpower. And then other days I think like I totally suck when I create something that just totally stinks up the place and bombs, which happens frequently, and happened very frequently. A piece that, like, everybody thought was just going to be a success was a truly spectacular failure that we all just watched in amazement as it just came to the ground, crashing and burning. So every time I think like I've got a superpower, I've gotten really good at aspects of things online, like I'll think, oh yeah, I've gotten really good at marketing research. Like, I can really go deep into the market research and and find out what resonates so strongly with the prospect or the customer, or I think, oh, I've gotten, finally, after a quarter of a century, I've gotten really good at this copywriting thing, or I've gotten really good at identifying trends and jumping on those and capitalizing on those to make money while they're hot. And then every time I have to be honest with myself, I feel like after doing this for 30 years, I really haven't gotten good at any of that stuff. There's the only superpower, if you want to call it that I have, is just the inability to quit when something isn't working. And even if that takes years of pushing through it. And I almost think that that's almost bordering on mental illness. In fact, I've been reading some studies from neurologists and psychiatrists studying successful writers, successful entrepreneurs, and even biographers studying successful people in the past. And the people who seem to have this trait could also qualify for the diagnostic criteria for some form of mental illness, mainly depression. And so it used to be that they taught that depression was not helpful for these kind of things, for an entrepreneur, for a business person, for a creative person. And it actually turns out that the depression causes a cognitive style that makes it just impossible to quit. So I guess, in all my life, I've thought that this cognitive style was a curse. And it turns out, when I look back on all the successes I've had, it's the biggest blessing I could possibly have. So if there's any superpower I have, it's just the inability to quit, to go from failure to failure to failure, sometimes years straight of failures without quitting. And I believe that's an ability that, if you weren't born with that cognitive style, it's still something that can be developed.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I can relate to a lot of what you laid out there, in that, like, you always hear the stories about how the Colonel Sanders tried like 1,006 times or something, or Thomas Edison tried 10,000 different ways to invent the light bulb. And I think about, like I do software, and there's been so many times when I just come across bugs or I can't figure out how to get the next thing figured out. And I also think about different product launches and things that I've been a part of where when the product launch never went as expected, right? Is that we had to redo sometimes a sales letter or redo the product or get a new traffic source. And I always used to get frustrated when I would team up with some other entrepreneur who would just quit at the first snag in the launch. And then I'd be sort of left to pick up the pieces and keep things going. And then things worked out a lot better when I came across more, I guess, irrational people like me and like how you're describing yourself. When if we hit a bump in the road, instead of going to the path of least resistance like the average kind of employee would, as entrepreneurs, we say, well, we hit a bump in the road, but let's keep on going. That's the fuel to work even harder. So I can definitely relate to that kind of misunderstood quality that we need to have of the inability to quit when something isn't working. That way you can push through and get to where you need to go. And so you mentioned in there this whole thing called direct response copywriting. And that's one of those things where, as you know, you write the right combination of words, you say the right things on a web page, and dang, you can sell just a ton of things online. But in the past couple of decades, in the past couple of years especially, this whole direct response thing has gotten quite a different look. And it seems to me, and let me know what you think of this in a second, it seems to me like all the principles are still there, like all the, hot buttons and getting people, excited and in this emotional kind of state. But the look of sales letters sure seems like it's changed quite a bit from the old kind of Gary Halbert yellow steno pad till now things look super slick, almost like an app. So do you have any thoughts on that, on just the way that direct response sales letters, they've completely changed their look lately?
Yeah, I love keeping up on that stuff because I find it interesting, and it's changing faster than ever. So I learned copywriting back in the day before the internet, and where for as I affectionately call us, kitchen table entrepreneurs, entrepreneurs with a bootstrap budget. Back then, the only media that we really had available was it was either space ads in magazines or newspapers or direct mail. For the most part, radio. I mean, of course, we had radio and TV. That media was available, but it was just out of budget for a bootstrap entrepreneur. So
except for Corey Rudel, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. So I had to learn this with my own money. I never did client work. I didn't even consider that. I just wrote copy for my own businesses. I had to learn it in direct mail and space ads where, you take out an ad or you rent a list and mail your stuff, and if it doesn't work, it's your money on the line. It's your loss. And so I've seen all these changes. Back in the day, a direct response sales letter was set in a number 10 envelope. It might have some teaser copy on the envelope that says, look inside for a special yada yada or whatever special deal. And it was just a good old fashioned letter, headline at the top, probably in a Courier typewriter font or maybe a Times New Roman font. Very little design to it, just a plain old-fashioned letter with a call to action of usually, the call to action was usually mail a check or call a phone number to order. And so, that's how I got into this thing, and that's how I learned. But man, online when I started, that's exactly what I did. I just put the same type of sales letter online as what you'd put in a direct mail letter back then. And that was, that worked great. And now I've seen it gone through all kinds of iterations and gone to the video sales letter where the words appear on screen while somebody reads the letter to you. And I've even seen more elaborate video sales letters where there's, actual action going on in the video while somebody narrates and stuff like that. And now I've seen the the pages that it just looks really pleasing to the eye. And each section is almost like its own little thing. The guys I work with at Agora Financial call that iHTML, which, as you scroll, you see all these different design elements. And I think it's probably like anything you can do to maintain attention online is what people keep testing, because sending somebody to a website is sending someone to a portal with 10,000 distractions. Whereas we really didn't have that problem in direct mail. Somebody got a direct mail letter, they're reading the letter. When you send them to a website online, there's Facebook dinging, there's Facebook instant messages, there's emails coming in. There's about 40,000 sites with scantily clad women they could go to. There's thousands of distractions, and you just sent them to that portal to read your message. So it seems like people are using every element possible these days to keep people focused on their message. The basics of the sales message have stayed the same. You just got to figure out the market's biggest hot buttons and biggest fears and speak to that. But yeah, it does seem to be changing even faster and faster. Who knows what the next breakthrough will be?
Yeah, I don't know. Like maybe they'll figure out some sort of way to bring in virtual reality or augmented reality, or use Facebook to choose based on their likes and their needs, like what to put in the copy or what else. But you're right. No matter what sort of innovations end up getting added to it, it's still going to boil down to, well, let's figure out how to hit on those hot buttons. Let's tap into their fears, and let's shut out anything that will get in the way of them going through our message. Like you said, before there wasn't all that much, but now that there's more of a distraction, now it seems like we need to maybe put more thought, more effort in this kind of thing, where maybe a few years ago you could just put anything you wanted on a web page, but now we have to get it more dialed in with the analytics and things like that.
One of the things I'm researching now is artificial intelligence. This is where it's heading, to the point of, I believe, just because of exponential growth and how technology is just getting better and better exponentially, that if you don't know how to leverage data and the massive amount of data you can get from artificial intelligence, it's just going to be impossible for you to compete. You won't even be in business. There was a story a few years ago about this. I don't remember if she was underage. She was very young. If she wasn't underage, she was just barely 18 or 19. But Target, because of all of their AI stuff and data collection, they knew this girl was pregnant and started marketing to her as a pregnant woman, to the point that she still lived with her father. And so he found out she was pregnant because of Target's marketing towards her. And that's the direction we're going. I still haven't, I got to get up to speed on that one, Robert, because that one still boggles my mind. But the people who know how to leverage that data and use that data are going to be the ones who will dominate their market.
Yeah, I agree completely. And I remember that story from Target where it was like she bought a certain brand of cotton balls or something like that. But even that story, that's 5 or 7 years ago. So you can only imagine what sorts of things keep coming down the pipeline. And then you hear about Amazon said something where they're working on a program where, using artificial intelligence, they'll just mail you the products that they think that you'll need, and then you can send back what you don't want. But pretty crazy how like Amazon is trying to even make the sales letter itself obsolete by saying, well, based on everything we know about you, here's what we think you'll need in your house, just based on who you are. So craziness.
That's wild. When you look at, and that's really what direct response copy has been all this time. It's just the issue has been, especially back in the day when I started, we just simply didn't have that kind of information available to us. If you look at some of the really famous writers' most successful pieces, like Gary Halbert, for example, or Gene Schwartz, you'll not find any example of any kind of elegant writing or any fancy prose or any form of writing that makes you look at it and think, oh my gosh, what a great writer. It's almost as if the writing itself draws no attention to itself whatsoever. It's just the writer knew the market's hot buttons. And when we talk about markets are just groups of people. So we're just talking about people, or when you write a sales pitch, you're writing to one person. So, the writer knew that person's wants and deepest desires and deepest fears so closely, they figured out what to talk about. But the actual message itself, the writing itself, is just very simple, usually written on a 6th grade level. So that has always been the key to successful copy, is knowing the market as well as you can. And so now with all these AI tools and stuff, like, we're going to know that better than ever before. So I can totally see that. It's brilliant of Amazon. Like, we know you so well, we're just going to send you the products that we know you need and want to buy. If we're wrong a little bit, send us back what you don't need and keep what you do. And now that's all fed into their system too. So now they know, oh, at this period in time, this person does not buy this, whatever it is, this protein bar or something. So now the systems just keep getting smarter and smarter and smarter. I even wondering, like, geez, am I going to be out of a job here in a few years? I'll become obsolete as the copywriter.
Maybe, but then there'll be someone who needs to fine tune the copywriting program or something like that. But yeah, it's been interesting to sort of hear about your thought process, and you're making me think back to when I first started, like, writing my own sales letters and having to figure out basically the rules of copywriting. It was really reassuring, because sometimes you'd look at a web page and you'd see all this, like, pages and pages of text, and then when you learn a few of these rules in copywriting, you're like, okay, well, like you said, it doesn't have to have all these layers or this clever language. You don't have to spend a month on one sentence. Maybe you'll spend a month on making that sentence, like, make sense or is in the right place or something like that. But like you said, it's like the language can in fact be awkward, and a language, it's more important to get someone in a mental state, or to mirror their own language, or to reassure their beliefs. So that was really helpful when I first jumped in knowing that like, just to have things like transitions or bucket brigades or power words, or these little exercises like rewrite copy by hand, or put out all these sentences that are exactly 7 words each. That way you can become more aware of saying the same thing, but saying it in kind of in a structured way. And so as we're kind of like beginning to wind down here, in all these sort of adventures you've been on and all these niches you've been in, is there anything that you would call like your big number one mistake, or is there a really huge lesson that if you could send that lesson back in time to your younger self, then you would?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, there's one in particular. Well, we'll stick to business lessons. I won't refer back to my biggest personal lesson, which still hurts to this day. But so I must have been mid 90s. I had a really good success in the bodybuilding market. So I was running an ad for a supplement in all the magazines. And I just didn't know what I didn't know. I was so green back then. But I'd run this ad, and depending upon which magazine it ran in, I would get either a 3-to-1 return on investment up to a 6-to-1 return on investment. So in other words, if, just for example, if the magazine charged me $1,000, the lowest return I got was I got 3,000 in sales from that $1,000 ad spend. In other magazines, it would be 6x. Like I get $6,000 back from a $1,000 ad. And like I said, I didn't know what I didn't know. I just thought that was normal to make money on the front end, on your front end offer. So I thought, well, I'm going to expand this product out. It was the perfect timing. The market was really aware of this particular product, and it was really aware of growth hormone at the time because this doctor had this book out that was a big success. And I thought, so I'm just going to position this not just for bodybuilders, but for the general public as like an anti-aging supplement. And, it helps you feel better and have more energy and lose weight. And I ran a test ad in the newspaper, and it basically broke even. So every dollar I spent on advertising brought $1 back in sales. And the media buyer called me and she goes, okay, well, we're at wherever it was. It was like a 1.2, 1.3 MER is what they call it in newspaper ads, which stands for media efficiency ratio. It's just return on ad spend. So $1,000 ad would bring like a 1.3 MER would bring back $1,300 in sales. And she said, so for our next spend, we should 5x our spend and start scaling this thing up. And I thought this woman was smoking crack, because my only frame of reference before was in the bodybuilding mags. I'm getting worst case scenario a 3x ROI and best case scenario a 6x ROI. And I really lament that because it was just the perfect storm. If I would have started scaling that thing up, what I had at the time, and I didn't realize it, was a system to get hundreds of thousands of new customers for free. Yes, I wouldn't have made money on the initial sale, but it paid for itself when I got all my advertising dollars back. And then, I could have made my money on the back end sales, selling them more, reorders of that particular product, selling me in other products. And it was such the perfect storm. And what I know today, since I've scaled up businesses like that now, I was sitting on a project that could have brought me in enough money to buy my own private island. But I literally dropped it because I didn't know any better. I thought you had to be profitable on the front end. And that was, that was 20 years ago. It's even worse now. It's even harder, if not impossible, to make a profit on the front end. But still to this day, that was one of the biggest mistakes I made. And I continued to make that mistake for years down the road until I finally figured out you don't make your money acquiring a customer. You make your money on the back end. And if you can just acquire a customer at break even, you should have a hallelujah breakdown about that.
Yeah, and you know what? When I hear that story, I hear two lessons in one. There's the first, the literal point of make your money on the back end, break even on the front end, so that way you can kind of build more of the flow coming in. And then number two, that it helps to put things in perspective if we feel like things are difficult or that we have a lot of failures. Well, those failures are helping us figure out the ins and outs, the nooks and crannies. And if we had just had a huge success out of the gate, day one, we wouldn't know how to duplicate that success. And it might have even led to big failures later on. So that's really interesting to hear about that. 20 years ago, you could have been letting on the secret of build this huge back end, and you could have been building this huge back end for 20 years. But now you learned the lesson. And just like I said, hearing that helps put like failures and successes kind of in their place and in perspective there. So you've given us a lot to chew on here and a lot of interesting stories. And I want to make sure that everyone knows about your books, about where to find you, about what you have going on. So can you drop some links for us here?
Oh, sure. And thank you for the opportunity to do that. Probably the The best way to find me is at dobermandan.com. There's a bunch of articles and case studies up there that you can access. And if anybody chooses to opt in, they'll be sent through my new book funnel. I have a new book out called Just Sell the Damn Thing. And I also do a podcast called Off the Chain, and that's available on iTunes, or you can also find it on offthechainshow.com.
Super cool. So DobermanDan.com is that hub, that place to be, and you can go and get onto Doberman Dan's book funnel and hear all about the Just Sell the Damn Thing book. And if you liked what Dan had to say here today and you want to basically become online friends with him in a way and have him in your ear whenever he puts out a new episode, then check out offthechainshow.com and subscribe and rate and review it, and you'll be glad that you did. So offthechainshow.com for the podcast and dobermandan.com for the central hub. And thanks, Doberman Dan, for stopping by and for sharing these interesting lessons and telling us about all your different like businesses and niches and things like that. It was interesting to hear, and it was a lot of fun. So thanks for that.
Thank you, Robert. I appreciate the opportunity, and I had a good time. I hope you did too.
I did. Thanks. Did you leave us a quick review on iTunes yet? It's quick and easy. Just go to marketeroftheday.com/iTunes, click the View in iTunes button, and we would be very grateful.